Hi there, I hope you're keeping well. My name is Angela, and today I just want to talk about whether or not we can starve cancer cells. So, what I share here, I share from my personal experience. I'm not a doctor, but I just want to put my perspective and my experience out there if it will help anybody. So, in 2016, I was diagnosed with a fast growing aggressive form of lymphoma. It was a rare type, and within 3 months, I was bedridden. In that time, I noticed the link between foods and how much pain I felt because I was just in pains all day 24/7. But certain days will be worse. I would roll on the floor and all of that. Whereas some days I'll just, be able to hold up a bit. So I started to document the foods that would cause me more pains. And I saw that when I had foods like rice, bread, about anything carbohydrate, pizza, pasta, anything sugary, fizzy drink, pain levels will be here. So I started to cut out those foods and stick to the foods that did not cause a lot of pain. And those foods were broccoli, kale, spinach, sardine, and stuff like that. So I stuck to those foods. I lost half of my body weight. But this was, I was intrigued by this and started to research into the connection between food and cancer. At this stage, the doctors were still investigating, but I just intuitively knew that this might be cancer because of the symptoms I was feeling and how much weight I had lost. And I decided to research the connection between food and cancer. And my body actually forced me to do this by making sure I couldn't, process certain foods anymore. It was so painful. So what I found was there's a big link between food and diseases generally, and also that you can actually support cancer treatment with food. So the doctors did when they got the biopsy result, it was they said we had to start immediately. We didn't have 1 week, and they didn't know if it was going to work. But thank God, I did what I had to do from home, and this is what I advise anybody who is unfortunately going through this journey. Don't just leave it to doctors. You do your own bit at home. Do your research to support whatever treatment you decide to go with. Support it with your nutrition. This is very important. This is what I did because the doctors would tell me, wow, Angela, just keep doing what you're doing. It is working. And my treatment was 1 full week of chemo, Monday to Saturday, 2 weeks in a month, and the other 2 weeks will be for transfusion and blood test, and in between each of the weeks. So it was very aggressive, very intense, and very painful. But I had found out the link between food and cancer, and I was handling that from home while they were doing what they were doing. And that's why they saw those blood results. They were like, that's recovered so quickly. They told me we might have to pause treatment because it's so aggressive, the bloods might not recover, but not once did they stop any of that treatment. The plan went exactly according to the initial timeline. Within the first 8 weeks, they did a CT scan. They said, let's see if we have reduced any of those cells at all, the cancer cells. And lo and behold, they couldn't find any. The CT scan was a basic CT scan, and there was no cancer cells at all. Even though they couldn't find the cells, they said, we're happy if you're happy to carry on so that we can just knock off this very nasty dose because it is notorious for coming back as well. So we carried on with the planned treatment, including 3 weeks of radiotherapy. So it was very aggressive treatment, but I believe supporting whatever they were doing with nutrition and lifestyle changes that I had to make quickly helped. So now let me just talk briefly about cancer cells. We all have trillions of cells. We start with one and end up with so many. And once in a while, a cell can become defective amongst trillions, can have a mind of its own and starts to mutate. I'm going to just explain this in a very layman's language so that anybody can understand it, and if it will help anybody, please share this video with them. So cancer cells are basic normal cells that decide to do their own thing. So they start to grow out of proportion, and what that means is they also need to feed. So cancer cells don't just grow by themselves. They need to feed to continue to grow, especially at the rate they grow. Some cells grow slowly over years. I think there was a man that had his tumor growing for 40 years before it finally started to cause him problem. Whereas for some, it can be fast, aggressive, like what I had, and within 3 months I was down. So it depends on what it is. But one thing that's clear is all cancer cells feed. So, and scientists agree with this. In 1924, Otto Warburg, who was a German scientist, a Nobel laureate, found out that cancer cells feed on sugar. And when he found this out, this is the basis for the PET scanning that we do today. I did one, and it involves injecting the patient with radioactive glucose molecules. So the idea is once it goes into the body, because cancer cells feed faster than the normal cells, that concentration of glucose goes straight into where the cancer cells are, and the imaging will be able to see the glow of cancer cells, and that's how they know if a patient has cancer or not. So both the medical world and everybody agrees that cancer cells feed on sugar. Later on in the years, scientists found out that it's not only sugar, they also feed on glutamine and other fatty acids. So it's not just sugar. Now, let's leave that for a minute and talk about how they get this sugar. When we eat any foods rich in carbohydrate like rice, potato, pasta, flour, processed food, chips, all of that, even fruits, ultimately it breaks down to glucose and then sugar. In a normal scenario, our cells process this, use it for energy. That's why we're able to go about our business, and function properly. But once cancer cells start to grow, it changes. What happens is when you have 10 portions of sugar, for example, your good cells would only feed on 1. The cancer cells would take 9. So they feed more, they have more need for that sugar that's coming through to your body through nutrition than the normal cell. The normal cells just behave normally, take what they need and do what they have to do. The cancer cells just go and consume the whole lot so that they can continue to maintain that rapid growth. So when they do that, they run out of space where they are growing and they start to move to other parts of the body. And that's when you start to get the different stages of cancer, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 as well. I was in stage 3 when I was diagnosed and started treatment. So that's how cancer cells feed on sugar. It gives them energy. Even though they rely on other nutrients to function and grow, they mostly are sugar hungry and dependent. So what I decided on my own when I found this out was I'm going to eat less sugar that will supply energy to those cancer cells. So I started to choose my diet like a diabetic, eat very little carbohydrates, and make sure the sugar I got were from fruits and vegetables. Because even though healthy fruits and vegetables contain sugar, they also are packed with antioxidants, and there's a balance there. Whereas the unhealthy foods just give the sugar with no benefit. So the antioxidant will do its job, and the little sugar that comes from the fruit and vegetable also gives you that bit of energy and not feed the cancer cells that much. So that was one approach that I adopted, and I still try to stick to till this day. Eat food with less carb. Just eat less carb. Another approach I adopted whilst waiting to start cancer treatment was fasting. Nearly all the religions encourage fasting because our bodies need to rest. We can't give it food 24/7 all year round. It needs to stop, rest, and regenerate. So I decided to also go on fasting because I found out that when you fast, the cancer cells would not necessarily die depending on how long. Just short-term fasting before treatment will weaken these cells. So when we fast, our good cells don't get the carbohydrate anymore, which they need for energy. That's why we're weak when we don't eat. But what they do, they start to go to our fat deposits and convert this to energy, and they carry on their function as best as they can. Now, for the cancer cells, they are not so fast to switch. So they become weak. And when they become weak, they are compromised. But I can tell you, some people have sworn that they fasted for a month, for 40 days, and the cancer cells died. I didn't do that. And also, I'll tell you, I didn't do a test after my fasting. I did 3 days fasting just before I commenced chemo. I did not do a test to see if they were weakened or not, or if they can even, if that test is available. So what I'm telling you is just based on what I did. I didn't prove it scientifically, but I know how my body was. That's all I can say. But doctors are reluctant to recommend this because a lot of patients are weakened, or patients already have underlying illness. So they're taking medication for certain conditions, and they fear that they might compromise their health anyway if they went into fasting or encourage people to fast. Otherwise, medical people agree that cancer cells feed on sugar. Everybody agrees on that. There's research out there to prove that cells are weakened when you don't feed on high carbs food. There's research to prove that fasting helps weaken cancer cells, and cancer cells can die off easily when they now encounter chemo or radiotherapy as a result of fasting. This is where I stand with this, and to be honest, I have been given the all clear since finishing my treatment. They worried that the treatment, the aggressive treatment, would damage my liver, kidney, organs, everything. But at the end of that treatment, a test was done. All my organs were unscratched. They were perfect. They were amazed. And I believe it was what I did with food whilst taking the conventional treatment that made the difference. Because they kept on saying to me, after blood test, Angela, wow, keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing else I did other than use food. So 2 years later said to me, I wanted you to enjoy the 2 years, so I didn't tell you this, but this sort of cancer is very notorious for coming back within the first 2 years of completing treatment. He had tears in his eyes. He called me a miracle the day he discharged me. And he said, Angela, keep doing what you're doing. I don't want to see you again except for a visit. And that's where we've been. Thank God, till this day, I'm not on any medication, no side effects. So in Africa, we're blessed with organic foods. When you have them, please don't give them up. Eat them. They do you good. Don't chase after the Indomies and all of that. These are the foods that actually keep you well. I'm not saying cut out those foods, but make sure these foods are a bigger part of your diet every day. Cherries are super. These are cherries, and strawberries, raspberries, all the berries, blueberries, all of these foods you can easily make. What I do, this was breakfast this morning. Make your smoothie, put it in the fridge so you don't have to do it every day. The secret is in the color. Try to spread your food choices to have multicolor. Don't stick to the same types of food, because the same types of food are likely going to be giving you the same benefit. So spread your food choices to different types of food so that you're getting a bit more of different nutrition and antioxidant type from the different foods. So that is what I wanted to put out there. Share this video with anyone you know may benefit from it. So in closing, what I would like to say is, don't leave your health to chance. The doctors can only do what they have been trained to do. All they did for me was give me chemo and radiotherapy and all of that. I had to find out what to do to support that process. So if you do try to, if somebody is going through this and they decide to have chemo, don't leave it to chance. Also do your bit at home. It might cost money, but these foods are not even expensive. They are cheaper than some of the pizzas and junk food we eat. All of this straight together might be a pizza order, you know. So I'm not saying don't eat pizza, but make your diet mostly foods like this. I go off sometimes and enjoy my puff during the child's birthday and all, but I know my limits and I walk back to my healthy food and cleanse my body. So it's all connected. Our body, the way we feel, and sicknesses, and what we give to our body. Our lifestyle, of course, is one. There's no one approach fix all. There's a lot of factors that play into keeping well, but One of the most important one is your nutrition. Pay attention to it, know what you're eating, and stay healthy. So thank you for watching. See you in my next video.